made with spoken. Playing God, The DNA Chronicles, by Just Wilder. Digital narration performed by multiple digital voices. Chapter 31. Playing God. The luminescent displays in Genevieve's private laboratory cast an ethereal glow across her features as she worked, her movements precise and deliberate. Written equations sprawled across every available surface, glass walls, digital screens, and even floating holographic displays, creating a cocoon of pure mathematics. Her enhanced mind processed multiple streams of data simultaneously. Her lips moved in a silent harmony of different languages.
The quantum entanglement parameters require adjustment,
She murmured in Mandarin, while her right hand sketched propulsion system schematics.
L'équation de sustentation gravitationnelle sont presque parfaites.
She continued in French, her left hand typing complex code sequences into 3 separate terminals. The multiple threads of thought no longer felt chaotic to her mind. Rather, they flowed together like tributaries feeding into a vast ocean of understanding in her conference meeting with the 13, as they planned for departure. Dr. Phelan stood in the doorway, unnoticed by Genevieve while in conference, her clipboard clutched to her chest, watching her mentor with a mixture of awe and unease. She had assisted Genevieve for years, but since the latest round of enhancements, something fundamental had shifted in the woman she once knew. The brilliant scientist remained, but something else had taken root alongside that genius, something cold and increasingly isolated, except for her relationship with Marcus, which had given her hope that Genevieve would continue to refine the process for the benefit of all, the dream that had brought her to the Infinity Institute.
Dr. Boucher,
Faye ventured, her voice barely above a whisper.
the investors are assembled in the demonstration hall.
Genevieve's hands paused mid-motion, her head turning with unnatural smoothness toward her assistant. Her eyes, now an impossible shade of electric blue, seemed to look through Faye rather than at her.
Remind me again why we waste time with these primitive financial concerns, Faye.
The Institute still requires funding for...
Faye began, but Genevieve cut her off with a dismissive wave.
Yes, the tedious machinery of commerce.
Genevieve straightened, her lab coat settling around her like a royal mantle.
Very well. Let us demonstrate divinity to the masses.
The demonstration hall hummed with anticipation as Genevieve strode onto the elevated platform. The assembled investors, medical executives, tech moguls, venture capitalists, and Alpha's government officials sat in tiered seating, their expressions eager. Alpha Magnus observed from the shadows at the back of the room, his face carefully neutral as he studied every nuance of Genevieve's presentation.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Genevieve began, her voice carrying effortlessly to every corner of the room.
you are here to witness not merely the next step in human evolution, but the birth of something entirely new.
She gestured, and holographic displays materialized around her, showing complex genetic structures rotating in 3-dimensional space.
Through our enhancement protocols, we have achieved what lesser minds would call the impossible. We have not merely extended life, we have transcended its limitations.
Her fingers moved through the air, manipulating the displays with practiced grace.
Observe.
The genetic structures morphed, showing before and after comparisons of enhanced subjects.
Cognitive processing increased by factors of thousands, physical capabilities beyond Olympic standards, cellular regeneration that makes death essentially optional.
She paused, letting her gaze sweep across the audience.
We are creating what primitives would have called gods.
Carmen Leclerc leaned forward in her seat, her financial acumen warring with growing discomfort.
Dr. Boucher, the preliminary results are impressive, but there have been concerns about stability in some subjects. The incident last month...
You cannot create gods without breaking a few mortals.
Genevieve interrupted, her tone dismissive.
The mathematics of evolution demand sacrifice. Those who failed were simply insufficient vessels for divinity.
A murmur of unease rippled through the audience. Alpha Magnus's eyes narrowed as he watched several investors shift uncomfortably in their seats. This was not the polished, carefully curated presentation they had prepared. This was something raw, something dangerous.
But perhaps,
Genevieve continued, seemingly oblivious to the tension.
You require a more concrete demonstration.
She raised her hand, and the hall's lighting shifted, focusing solely on her.
In the past hour, while speaking to you, I have solved 17 theoretical physics problems previously considered impossible, designed a new form of quantum computing, and begun preliminary calculations for interstellar travel.
She smiled, but the expression held no warmth.
Would you like to see?
The holographic displays shifted, revealing complex mathematical formulas that seemed to twist and writhe in the air. Several of the more scientifically inclined investors leaned forward, their eyes widening as they processed what they were seeing.
Impossible,
whispered a quantum physicist from the prestigious Royal Science Academy, where the greatest minds in the world collaborated, his face pale.
That's a solution to the quantum gravity problem. And that's a unified field theory that actually works.
Impossible?
Genevieve laughed in a way that unnerved most present. But the results were the results. She was able to deliver on more than had been promised.
I have transcended such limited thinking. These are mere childhood puzzles now.
She waved her hand again, and the equations transformed into engineering schematics.
Perhaps something more practical? Here are the designs for an engine capable of achieving near-light speed travel. The principles are so elementary, I'm rather embarrassed humanity hasn't discovered them before.
Government officials were scrambling to position their governments to obtain this technology before others did. Calls were being placed, messages being sent, as they realized what a priority this would be. Dr. Phelan watched from the side of the stage, her heart racing. This wasn't the carefully scripted presentation they had planned. Genevieve was going off script, revealing far more than they had intended. She caught Alpha Magnus's eye across the room, seeing her own concern mirrored in his expression.
Dr. Boucher?
Carmen Leclerc stood, her voice steady despite her obvious discomfort.
While these achievements are remarkable, our investors are primarily interested in the medical applications of the enhancement protocol. Perhaps we could focus on...
Medical applications?
Genevieve's voice took on a dangerous edge.
You still think so small, Carmen. We are not creating better humans. We are creating something entirely new, something beyond normal humanity.
She turned back to the audience, her enhanced eyes seeming to glow in the dim light.
Those who prove worthy will join us in this ascension. The rest will remain what they are, stepping stones on the path to godhood.
Alpha Magnus moved quietly through the shadows toward the stage's control panel. This had gone far enough. Before he could reach it, however, Genevieve continued, her voice taking on an almost hypnotic quality.
Even now, preparations are underway. The next phase has already begun.
She gestured, and new schematics appeared, massive structures that looked like a cross between spacecraft and temples.
We will not be bound by this world much longer. The stars await those who dare to claim them.
The room erupted in confused murmurs. This was far beyond what any of them had expected or invested in. Several investors rose from their seats, heading for the exits. Others sat transfixed, either horrified or fascinated by this glimpse into what seemed like madness, or perhaps something beyond their comprehension.
Dr. Boucher.
Alpha Magnus's voice cut through the chaos.
I believe we should conclude for today. Our guests have much to process.
Genevieve turned to him, and for a moment, he saw something ancient and terrible in her gaze.
Yes,
she said softly.
They do indeed.
She addressed the audience one final time.
Consider carefully what you have witnessed today. Choose wisely which side of evolution you wish to be on.
As the investors filed out, many speaking in hushed, urgent tones into their phones, Genevieve returned to her private laboratory. The AI system she had secretly developed hummed into life as she entered, recognizing their creator.
Initialize production sequence alpha,
she commanded, her voice echoing in the secure facility. Hidden panels in the walls slid open, revealing advanced robotics far beyond anything the public knew existed.
Begin construction of the Exodus vessels. Mortality's chains will not bind us much longer.
In her reflection on the laboratory's glass walls, Genevieve studied her own transformed features. The last traces of human uncertainty had vanished from her face, replaced by something both beautiful and terrible. Genevieve alone in her lab, staring at her reflection in a darkened window, wondering aloud, is this how gods are born? Through shedding weakness by the death of what makes them frail?
This is how divinity feels?
She mused aloud.
The shedding of human weakness?
Later that evening, in a secured conference room deep within the Institute, Alpha Magnus met with Carmen Leclerc and several key board members. The tension in the room was palpable, hanging heavy in the air like an approaching storm.
What we witnessed today was concerning, to say the least.
Carmen began, her usually impeccable composure showing signs of strain.
The investors are overwhelmed and panicking. 3 have already withdrawn their funding, and others want to know if their investments include ownership of these new technologies, while others are demanding emergency meetings. And the government is trying to claim domain over the technologies by classifying the technologies.
Alpha leaned back in his chair, his fingers steepled before him.
More concerning is what wasn't shown in that demonstration. The level of technological advancement Genevieve revealed, it goes far beyond what even I was aware of.
He paused, choosing his next words carefully.
And I'm supposed to have full access to all project developments.
Dr. Fei Lin, who had been quietly observing from the corner, knew something none of the others present did.
There's more,
She said, her voice barely above a whisper.
There are entire sub-basements that have been completely sealed off. Even my clearance won't grant me access.
She's building something down there.
Alpha stated flatly.
Something she doesn't want any of us to see.
The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Carmen was the first to speak again, her financial acumen shifting to survival instinct.
The enhancement protocols, they've changed her more than we anticipated, haven't they? This isn't just about improved cognitive function anymore.
No,
Alpha agreed.
it isn't. We're witnessing the birth of something entirely new. The question is, how do we control it?
In her private quarters, Genevieve stood before a wall of screens, each displaying different aspects of her grand design. The AI robots she had created worked tirelessly in the hidden facilities beneath the Institute, constructing the vessels that would carry her and her chosen few beyond this world, galaxies to be discovered, and worlds to create. She spoke aloud, her voice carrying to hidden sensors throughout the room.
Display candidate list alpha through omega.
Holographic profiles materialized before her. Every employee of the Institute, every enhanced individual, every potential asset for her planned exodus.
Begin evaluation protocols.
She commanded. The AI systems hummed in response, complex algorithms sorting through the candidates based on criteria only Genevieve fully understood. Names began sorting themselves into categories.
Worthy. Potential.
And
Expendable.
Dr. Phelan's profile floated near the top of the worthy category, her loyalty and intelligence marking her as valuable. Alpha Magnus's profile flashed with warning indicators. Too ambitious. Too questioning. Carmen Leclerc's mathematical and financial genius placed her in potential, though her recent doubts were noted as concerning.
Humanity.
Genevieve mused, walking through the floating profiles like a goddess among mortal shadows.
Such potential, yet so limited by their own fear of transcendence.
She paused before a particular profile, her enhanced mind processing countless variables simultaneously.
They cling to their mortality like a security blanket, never understanding that true greatness requires leaving such limitations behind.
In another part of the facility, Dr. Julien Renard worked late into the night, analyzing data from Genevieve's demonstration. His hands trembled slightly as he reviewed the equations she had revealed. As one of the original architects of the enhancement protocol, he understood better than most what they were seeing.
This is impossible.
He muttered to himself, running simulation after simulation.
The human brain shouldn't be capable of this level of processing. The neural pathways would burn out unless...
He trailed off, his face paling as a new possibility occurred to him.
Unless the brain was no longer bound by the normal limitations of humanity.
Julien's discovery sent him hurrying through the Institute's corridors, his footsteps echoing in the late-night emptiness. He found Dr. Phelan in her office, surrounded by holographic displays of the day's events.
The neural patterns...
He said without preamble, spreading his findings across her desk.
Look at these readings from Genevieve's latest scan.
Faye leaned forward, her eyes widening as she processed the data.
These structures, they're not following any known neural architecture.
Exactly.
Julian replied, his voice dropping to a whisper, despite their privacy.
Her brain isn't just enhanced, it's reorganizing itself, creating new patterns, new ways of processing information that we've never seen before. She's not just thinking faster, she's thinking differently.
Meanwhile, in the secured underground facility, Genevieve stood among her secret creation, ranks of advanced AI robots, their metallic forms gleaming under the harsh laboratory lights. Unlike the crude machines known to the public, these beings possessed an elegance that bordered on artistic. Their movements were fluid, almost organic, as they worked on the massive structures taking shape in the cavernous space.
Progress report,
She commanded, her voice carrying an authority that even these artificial beings responded to. The nearest robot turned, its advanced optical sensors focusing on her.
Primary construction of Exodus Vessel 1 is 17% complete. Current timeline project's completion within 48 days.
Genevieve nodded, running her hand along the sleek hull of what would become humanity's first true interstellar vessel.
Accelerate the timeline. Utilize all available resources.
She paused, a slight smile playing on her lips.
Our ascension cannot wait for those who cling to their limitations.
Above ground, Alpha Magnus had retreated to his private office, where he engaged in a secured communication with several military contacts. The screens before him displayed satellite imagery of unusual energy signatures emanating from beneath the Institute.
Whatever she's building down there,
His primary contact said, his face grave on the screen.
it's drawing more power than a small city. The energy readings are like nothing we've seen before.
Alpha's jaw tightened.
Can you get me more detailed scans?
Negative. There's some kind of interference blocking our usual methods. It's technology we can't penetrate, or possibly even understand.
In her laboratory, Genevieve continued her work, her mind operating on multiple levels simultaneously. Part of her mind directed the AI robots. Another part solved complex equations for space travel in conference with her 13, while yet another sorted to potential candidates for ascension. She spoke aloud, though whether to herself or to her hidden AI assistants wasn't clear.
The human form is merely a chrysalis. We are emerging into something greater.
Her fingers moved through the air, manipulating holographic displays.
Those who cannot see this truth will be left behind in their cocoons of ignorance.
Dr. Fei Lin, watching through the laboratory's glass walls, felt a chill. The woman before her, her mentor, her inspiration, had become something she no longer fully recognized. Yet she couldn't deny the brilliance, the potential, the promise of transcendence that Genevieve offered. As if sensing her presence, Genevieve turned, fixing Faye with those impossibly bright blue eyes.
Come in, Dr. Lin. It's time we discussed your role in our future.
Faye entered the laboratory, her heart pounding. The air seemed to crackle with potential, with power, with the promise of transformation. As the door sealed behind her, she couldn't help but wonder if she was walking into salvation or damnation.
Show her,
Genevieve commanded, and the laboratory's lights dimmed as new holographic displays sprang to life, revealing the full scope of her vision. Not just spacecraft, but entirely self-sustaining habitats, technologies that defied current understanding. And something more, a path to transformation that would reshape the very definition of human existence.
what you're seeing
Genevieve explained, her voice carrying an almost musical quality.
is the next phase of stretching the limitations of space travel. Not just biological enhancement, but complete transformation. We will travel at near light speed, explore the distant universe, possibly cross-dimensional worlds.
Faye struggled to process the images before her. The designs showed something beyond mere spacecraft or habitats. They were templates for a new kind of space travel altogether.
This would change everything we know about the known universe.
Humanity
Genevieve replied, her tone carrying a hint of disdain.
is merely the first rung on an infinite ladder. We have the potential to become something far greater.
She turned to face her protégé directly.
The question is, Dr. Lin, are you prepared to take that step?
In the shadows of the Institute's lower levels, Julien Renard worked feverishly to decode the data from Genevieve's neural scans. Each new discovery sent shivers of horror and amazement through him. The changes in her brain weren't random mutations. They followed a pattern, a design so elegant it bordered on impossible.
She's not just enhancing herself.
He muttered, recording his findings in a secured database.
She's rewriting the fundamental code of the human mind.
Above ground, Alpha Magnus received an urgent communication from his military contacts.
We're detecting unusual satellite activity.
The message read.
Something is interfacing with multiple global communication systems, but we can't trace the source.
Genevieve had become aware of the satellite spying on her, so now she was uploading commands to respond with hostility to anyone perceived as her enemy. If they had attack capabilities, they would self-destruct. Genevieve's AI network was spreading, silently integrating itself into the world's digital infrastructure. In her private sanctuary, she smiled as she felt her influence expand. The neural upgrades she'd designed weren't just enhancing her intelligence, they were connecting her directly to the digital realm, making her as much a digital control node as flesh.
The time for secrecy is ending.
She announced to her assembled AI creations.
Begin final preparation sequences. Those worthy of ascension will soon receive their call.
In her laboratory, Faye watched as Genevieve manipulated reality itself with casual ease. Her enhanced abilities now bordered on the miraculous.
Consider carefully, Dr. Lin.
Genevieve said, her voice carrying an almost hypnotic quality.
You've seen what we're becoming. Will you remain bound to this planet, or will you join us among the stars?
The choice seemed to linger between them, heavy with implications. Faye looked into Genevieve's eyes and saw something both terrifying and beautiful, the future of humanity itself, reaching out with an open hand. As the night deepened, Genevieve stood alone in her laboratory, watching her reflection in the darkened windows. The woman who had started this journey was gone, replaced by something that straddled the boundary between human and divine. Her enhanced mind reached out, connecting with her hidden network of AI systems, feeling the pulse of data flowing through the digital realm like blood through her veins.
Is this how gods are born?
She wondered aloud, her voice barely a whisper.
Through the death of what makes them human?
She turned away from her reflection, facing the holographic displays of her grand design.
Perhaps that's the price of divinity, to leave behind the very limitations that once defined us.
In the depths beneath the Institute, her robots continued their work, building the vessels that would carry her chosen few beyond the boundaries of this world. Above, the stars waited, silent and eternal, promising a destiny that no human had ever dared to claim. Genevieve's voice echoed through her domain.
We are no longer bound by the limitations of humanity. The stars await those who dare to claim them.
Genevieve reached out to Marcus with her mind, a smile on her face as she could feel the joy in his voice, now understanding that he could talk with her through their minds anytime he wanted.
Marcus, are you ready? We are leaving soon. Are you ready?
Where you go, my love, I go,
was the response. In the darkness of her laboratory, the future itself seemed to hold its breath, waiting to see what this new goddess would choose to create or destroy. Chapter 32. Faye's Choice. Faye watched Samara. From behind the observation glass of Lab 7, the enhanced woman was a study in serene perfection, reclining in the zero-gravity chair, as if gravity itself were a suggestion she could politely decline. Samara's breathing was shallow, almost imperceptible, her chest rising and falling with the measured rhythm of a precisely calibrated machine. Her skin, bathed in the soft, diffused light of the lab, possessed a flawless porcelain quality, undisturbed by pores or imperfections. Even in repose, a quiet power radiated from her, a sense of effortless control that felt both awe-inspiring and deeply unsettling. Flawless. They call it enhancement. But is it? Faye adjusted her glasses, a nervous tic that surfaced whenever the carefully constructed walls of her composure threatened to crumble. Samara was undeniably a triumph of science. Illness, weakness, the messy imperfections of human biology, all erased, refined, elevated. Yet, watching her, Faye felt a growing unease, a chill that had nothing to do with the lab's meticulously controlled temperature. Samara was serene, yes, beautiful even, in a sculpted, almost inhuman way. But there was a detachment in that serenity, a stillness that bordered on vacancy. No, vacancy was not the right word. Faye knew that even while sleeping, Samara would be processing data at 300 times the rate of normal human capability. No, it was the absence of something, a spark, a warmth, a flicker of the messy, unpredictable emotions that defined humanity that troubled Faye. Around Lab 7, the advanced technology pulsed with quiet power. The medical pods, silent sentinels of transformation, stood ready. Holographic displays shimmered with data streams, intricate algorithms mapping cellular regeneration, neural pathway optimization, the very building blocks of life and humanity being rewritten in lines of code. This was the cutting edge, the forefront of human evolution, the realization of the dreams Faye had shared with Genevieve, the dreams that had drawn her to the Infinity Institute in the first place. I truly believed. Faye's fingers tapped a nervous rhythm against her clipboard, a silent counterpoint to the lab's technological hum. Years ago, fresh out of university, brimming with idealism, and driven by a thirst for scientific discovery, the Institute had seemed like a beacon, a place where the impossible became reality, where science could conquer human limitations, age, degeneration, illness, even the always impending threat of death, where progress was not just a word, but a tangible, achievable goal. Genevieve Boucher, then a rising star, now a luminary on the verge of godhood, had been her inspiration, her mentor, the embodiment of that audacious vision. Faye remembered her early days as Genevieve's assistant, the long hours spent in labs not as clinically pristine as Lab 7, the late-night debates fueled by caffeine and shared ambition, the electric thrill of breakthroughs, the quiet satisfaction of incremental progress. Enhancement back then had been a promise, a hope, a path to ease suffering, to extend human potential, to create a better future. She had believed wholeheartedly in the Institute's mission, in Genevieve's genius, in the transformative power of science. Loyalty to Genevieve, to the Institute, to the pursuit of progress, had become the bedrock of her career, her identity, her very purpose. But whispers about the failures had always existed. Murmurs in the sterile corridors, hushed conversations in the break rooms, shadows lurking beneath the glossy surface of progress. Failed trials, subjects lost, sacrifices made in the relentless pursuit of advancement. Faye had witnessed many of the failed trials, had heard the whispers, of course, but she had pushed them aside, compartmentalized them, focusing on the successes, the undeniable progress, the tangible benefits of the Institute's work. The sacrifices, she told herself, were necessary, the price of progress, the inevitable cost of pushing boundaries. The ends justified the means. It was a mantra she repeated to herself, a shield against the growing unease, a justification for the ethical compromises she had learned to make, to ignore. Marcus Atwood, lying in his private suite in the medical wing, was, in many ways, the ultimate justification. Faye had seen his medical charts, reviewed his prognosis at St. Mary's, witnessed his near-death state before the Institute intervened. And now, weeks later, he was vitality personified, laughing, joking, his body regenerating at an astounding rate, his neural pathways rewiring themselves with breathtaking speed. Marcus was a miracle, a testament to the Institute's power, a shining example of the very progress Faye had dedicated her life to. Undeniable progress. But Faye's gaze drifted back to Samara, to the unsettling perfection of the enhanced subjects in the advanced observation ward. Marcus was healed, yes, physically transformed, undeniably vibrant. But her friend Leora's worry lingered, a persistent shadow in Faye's mind, a quiet counterpoint to the Institute's triumphant narrative. Leora's unease, her subtle questions, her barely veiled fear for her brother, had begun to chip away at Faye's carefully constructed justifications, to expose the cracks in her unwavering loyalty. And Genevieve, Genevieve's escalating detachment, her increasingly godlike pronouncements, her growing distance from the messy, unpredictable realities of human emotion and ethical considerations, amplified Faye's internal conflict, forcing her to confront the doubts she had long suppressed. The door to Lab 7 hissed open, and Genevieve entered, her presence immediately dominating the sterile space. She moved with a new grace, fluid and effortless, her enhanced physique radiating an almost unnatural vitality. Her eyes, those impossible crystal blue orbs, fixed on Faye, their gaze both piercing and strangely hypnotic. They made Faye feel as if she were an interesting specimen under a microscope, rather than a colleague, a protégé, a trusted confidant.
Faye?
Genevieve's voice, smooth and cultured, yet carrying an underlying edge, broke the silence.
Samara's progress?
Exemplary, Dr. Boucher.
Faye replied, her professional mask snapped firmly into place, her voice measured, devoid of any hint of her internal turmoil.
Cellular regeneration is exceeding projected parameters. Neural integration is progressing seamlessly. No adverse indicators.
Genevieve nodded, her gaze sweeping over Samara, assessing, calculating, as if Samara were a complex experiment rather than a living being.
As expected,
she stated, her tone almost dismissive.
Perfection is becoming routine.
The word lingered, heavy with implication, chilling in its casual arrogance.
All of our work is starting to bear the fruit we had dreamed about, Faye. Is it bringing you the same joy and satisfaction it does for me?
Genevieve turned to Faye, her unwavering gaze locking with hers, demanded absolute attention.
Faye, your loyalty has always been valuable,
she began, her voice softening slightly, which added a depth of warmth rarely heard, a subtle shift in tone that did little to ease the tension coiling in Faye.
But loyalty must be absolute with me.
Faye's breath hitched, a cold dread washing over her. This was it, the ultimatum. The moment of truth she had been both anticipating and dreading. She adjusted her glasses, her fingers trembling almost imperceptibly, her gaze fixed on Genevieve, trying to decipher the unreadable depths of her eyes.
Genevieve,
Faye began, her voice carefully neutral.
I am loyal to the Institute, to our shared goals of scientific progress, to the betterment of humanity through enhancement.
The words felt rehearsed, hollow, even to her own ears, a carefully constructed shield against the inevitable confrontation. Genevieve's smile tightened, losing its warmth, becoming sharper, more clinical.
Shared goals, Faye?
She echoed, the phrase tinged with subtle derision.
You still think so small. My goals, Faye, have expanded. Humanity is evolving. I am leading that evolution. And you have a choice, ascend with me or remain behind.
Remain behind. The words hit Faye, a chilling pronouncement, not some veiled threat. Faye's heart pounded in her chest and in her ears, a frantic drumbeat against the oppressive silence of the lab. Ascend. The word echoed Genevieve's increasingly grandiose pronouncements, her messianic vision of transcendence, of leaving behind the limitations of humanity, of reaching for the stars, both literally and figuratively. But what did it truly mean to ascend with Genevieve? To become like her? To sacrifice the very essence of her humanity for a promise of godhood?
Genevieve.
Faye began again, her voice barely above a whisper, her carefully constructed composure cracking.
I need time to consider.
The words felt inadequate, pathetic, a weak defense against the overwhelming force of Genevieve's will, her ambition, her terrifying certainty. Genevieve's smile faltered, replaced by a flicker of something that resembled disappointment, perhaps even a hint of pity.
Time, Faye?
She stated, her voice laced with subtle condescension.
Time is a human construct, a limitation of mortal perception. We are beyond such constraints now. The choice is simple, Faye. Commitment or obsolescence.
Obsolescence. Another chilling word, another not-so-veiled threat. Faye's breath hitched again, her fingers tapping a frantic rhythm against her clipboard, her mind racing, desperately searching for a way out, a way to reconcile her ingrained loyalty with her growing ethical unease, her deepening fear of Genevieve's true vision.
I believe in progress, Genevieve,
Faye insisted, her voice gaining a fragile strength. clinging to the remnants of her past idealism.
But at what cost? Are we losing something essential in this transcendence?
She trailed off, unable to articulate her doubts fully, her fear of Genevieve's reaction holding her back, silencing the deeper questions that screamed within her. Genevieve's gaze intensified, her eyes burning with an almost messianic fervor.
Essential?
She repeated, the word laced with disdain.
Humanity's limitations are not essential, Faye. They are chains, and we are breaking free. The ethical implications are significant, yes, but evolution demands sacrifice. The greater good requires difficult choices.
Her voice softened again, regaining its seductive charm. Her gaze almost pleaded.
I have high hopes for you, Faye. You have the intellect, the dedication. You have been invaluable to me, to the Institute. But do you have the vision? Do you have the courage to transcend your own limitations, to embrace the future, to become more? As we have seen, the sacrifices of willing participants to serve the greater good. Many good people placed themselves in harm's way, and many made the ultimate sacrifice for us to arrive at the place we find ourselves today. We are able to confidently enhance individuals today without fear of many, if not all, the complications of the past. Because of the sacrifices of those many individuals, I am grateful to them and their sacrifices. Faye, that is part of the reason that I feel you would be so valuable as part of the chosen. You have the talent, yes, but more importantly, you are fair and objective in your judgment. I know you harbor doubts about the enhancements. I know there are things you would like to question me about right now, but don't out of fear. You need not fear me, Faye. I have hopes that as an enhanced individual, you would continue to be a buffer, a voice of reason that I respect.
Faye remained silent, her gaze fixed on Genevieve, her mind a whirlwind of conflicting emotions, torn between her ingrained loyalty and her burgeoning conscience, between the seductive allure of transcendence and the chilling certainty of its cost. Genevieve watched her, waiting, her patience a force Faye could feel, her silence more demanding than any words could have been. Finally, Faye spoke, her voice barely audible, a fragile whisper in the sterile silence of Lab 7.
I am dedicated to the Institute's goals, Genevieve.
She almost whispered, her words carefully chosen, deliberately ambiguous, a desperate attempt to buy herself more time, to postpone the inevitable confrontation.
To scientific progress, to a better future.
But the sincerity was wavering, the conviction faltering, the bedrock of her loyalty cracking under the weight of her growing doubt. Genevieve's smile returned, not the warm, dazzling smile she had shown Marcus, but a colder, more calculating smile. A smile that held no warmth, no reassurance, only a chillingly detached assessment.
Good,
she said, her voice regaining its edge of steel.
Then you understand. Good and fair gods, Faye, that is what we must become.
Faye watched Genevieve depart, her enhanced form gliding effortlessly out of Lab 7, leaving Faye alone in the sterile silence. The weight of Genevieve's ultimatum pressed on her, suffocating her. She remained motionless for a long moment, her gaze fixed on the empty doorway, her mind a chaotic battleground of conflicting emotions. Loyalty warred with conscience, fear wrestled with a sense of defiance. The seductive allure of transcendence clashed with her perception of the chilling reality that enhancement to transcendence was a loss of humanity to its aloof inhumanity. Doubt. A seed of doubt has been planted in fertile ground. Faye adjusted her glasses again, her fingers trembling now, her professional composure finally fracturing. She couldn't give Genevieve the unwavering commitment she demanded. She couldn't simply embrace the vision of godhood, not without confronting the ethical abyss that yawned beneath its glittering surface. The shadow of doubt lingered, a persistent unease that refused to be silenced. Her ingrained loyalty, the bedrock of her career, was cracking, crumbling under the weight of her own conscience. And yet, loyalty, deeply ingrained, stubbornly persisted. She couldn't simply abandon everything she had believed in, everything she had dedicated her life to, not overnight. Genevieve was still her mentor, the Institute still her purpose, progress still her driving force. But the path forward was no longer clear, no longer certain. She was walking a tightrope, stretched taut between two opposing forces, loyalty and conscience, fear and a fragile, nascent hope for something more, something precious, her humanity. Later, in the sterile silence of her assigned workspace, Faye accessed Liora Atwood's research files, ostensibly to review data related to Maya Lee's case, a task assigned by Genevieve, a subtle test of her continued loyalty. But her fingers strayed, almost unconsciously, towards other directories, towards files related to neural enhancement protocols, towards data streams from Marcus Atwood's treatment, towards information that Liora, in her desperate search for answers, might find valuable. It was a subtle act of defiance, a quiet rebellion, a shift in allegiance, however precarious, however dangerous, granting Liora access, not directly, overtly, but leaving a digital breadcrumb trail, subtle anomalies in the system logs, easily overlooked data points that a sharp, desperate mind might recognize, might follow, might find useful. It was a test, Faye knew, testing the precarious ground of potential defection, testing her own limits, testing the boundaries of her own conscience.
Just ensuring data integrity,
She told herself, a fragile justification, a whisper of denial against the rising tide of her dissent.
double-checking the results, cross-referencing protocols, standard scientific procedure.
But beneath the veneer of professional routine, a different motive pulsed, a newfound empathy for Liora, a flicker of solidarity with her ethical unease, a quiet, desperate hope for redemption. Faye closed her eyes, the weight of her choice pressing on her, suffocating her in the sterile silence of the Institute. She was walking a dangerous path now, a tightrope stretched over an abyss of uncertainty, betrayal, and potential discovery. Her loyalty was fractured, her conscience awakened, her future uncertain. But in the depths of her fear, a fragile spark of hope flickered to life, a desperate gamble for redemption, a quiet act of defiance in the face of overwhelming power, a new allegiance shifting, subtly, irrevocably, towards the messy, unpredictable, and ultimately essential heart of humanity. One final thought entered her mind. Since her loyalty shift, she needed to tell Liora that Genevieve was closer to Marcus than anyone else knew. It was no longer a doctor-patient relationship. She had seen the way Marcus looked at Genevieve. His smile would light up the room. And, to everyone's surprise, Genevieve would smile back in a way that no one had ever seen her smile. She became softer, kinder, and more human when she was around Marcus. But Faye felt Liora needed to know, so that their relationship would not blindside her. In her private lab, Genevieve was monitoring Faye's activity. She had picked up her thoughts of defiance, though not spoken. They were present in their conversation. Genevieve's thoughts felt a tinge of sadness. She had believed that Faye would be a perfect part of the chosen, but alas, it was not to be. And these minor acts of defiance didn't really matter to Genevieve. They would leave soon. And Marcus would be her buffer against overreaching what should be done. He had kept his joy, his kindness and caring, despite his transcendence. He also filled the place in her life that Genevieve had wondered if she was capable of. She could admit to herself now that she had started out to manipulate Marcus to transcendence, and that Marcus broke down her walled-off heart and made her love him. It almost felt strange to admit, but Genevieve was completely in love with Marcus, and he told her that wherever she went, he would go to be with her. Yes, Marcus will fill the role I thought I needed Faye to fill in their godhood, and so much more. Chapter 33, Alpha's Gambit. Alpha Magnus stood as a silhouette against the sprawling cityscape, the aged scotch in his hand. From his perch high in the Infinity Institute Tower, the metropolis resembled an intricate circuit board, lines of light pulsing with a fabricated life. Why did it seem that the circuit board people were determined to not bow to his instructions? He was feeling the power he had been so certain of slipping from his grasp. He needs to do something about it right now. The scotch, a rare vintage, usually soothed his strategic mind, but tonight, it did little to quell the unease that coiled within him, a serpent of concern tightening its grip around his resolve. Genevieve. Her name, a whisper in the opulent stillness of his office, was a complex equation he was determined to solve. She had always been a force of nature, And once he admired her, a brilliant scientist whose revolutionary vision had propelled the Infinity Institute to unimaginable heights. But something had shifted, subtly at first, then with alarming speed. Her brilliance had curdled into something else, something akin to hubris, a dangerous intoxication with her own power, a detachment from the very foundations of the institute she had built. This is no longer about science, Alpha thought, the scotch swirling in his glass like a miniature storm. It's about faith. And faith, untethered from reason, is a weapon wielded by madmen. Genevieve's pronouncements, once grounded in empirical data and cautious extrapolation, had morphed into messianic declarations, pronouncements of ascension, of godhood, of a future that left the mundane concerns of humanity far behind. The investors, those pragmatic souls driven by earthly returns, were growing restless. The board, ever attuned to the tremors of market instability and public perception, whispered doubts in the hushed corridors of power. Although the technologies she offered were amazing beyond imagination, the fear was her instability when she talked about them. Almost no one could follow her trains of thought, and those who were capable wanted to own her technologies. But she seemed beyond control as long as she remained in charge. He needed to rein her in and control her research and goodwill offers to the community. Profit first. The board and investors will like his approach better. A soft chime, the discreet herald of Carmen Leclerc's arrival, broke the tense silence of his thoughts. Alpha turned from the panoramic view, his gaze sharpening as Carmen entered, a figure sculpted from efficiency and composure. She moved with a quiet grace that belied the sharp intellect sheathed beneath her polished exterior. His most trusted lieutenant, the pragmatic counterpoint to his own strategic ambition.
Carmen.
Alpha greeted, his voice a low rumble that resonated with authority.
Thank you for coming.
Of course, Alpha,
she replied, her gaze unwavering, assessing the subtle tension etched into his features.
You sounded preoccupied in your communication to me.
He gestured towards the seating area, a cluster of plush leather armchairs arranged around a low mahogany table.
Preoccupied is a diplomatic understatement, Carmen. I am observing a divergence, a trajectory that is unsustainable.
He settled into the deep armchair, the supple leather molding to his enhanced frame. Carmen mirrored his movement, her posture erect and attentive, tablet held discreetly in her hand.
Genevieve's public address.
Alpha began, his tone measured, analytical.
It was bold, revolutionary, even in its scope. But boldness without pragmatism is recklessness. Revolution without control is chaos.
Carmen nodded slowly.
The investor reaction has been mixed. Enthusiasm tempered with apprehension. The Maya Lee incident, the whispers of instability, and now, Genevieve's celestial pronouncements. It's creating a climate of uncertainty, Alpha.
Uncertainty is a virus, Carmen, that erodes confidence, that undermines stability.
Alpha stated, leaning forward, his gaze intense.
And stability is the bedrock upon which we have built the Infinity Institute. It is the foundation of our power, our influence, our profitability.
He paused, letting the weight of his words settle.
Genevieve, in her pursuit of transcendence, is jeopardizing that foundation.
Carmen consulted her tablet, the screen glowing softly in the dim light.
The board members are voicing similar concerns. Thornton and DuPont have requested clarification. They seek assurances that the Institute remains grounded in terrestrial realities.
Alpha allowed a ghost of a smile to touch his lips.
Terrestrial realities, precisely. And that, Carmen, is where we find our leverage. Genevieve offers them stars, nebulous promises of godhood. We offer them solid ground, tangible returns, the reassurance of control.
A strategic pivot,
Carmen summarized, her analytical mind already processing the implications.
Positioning you as the stabilizing force, the guarantor of order amidst the perceived chaos of Genevieve's vision.
Precisely.
Alpha reiterated, his gaze hardening.
We offer them calm waters amidst her storm. Controlled evolution, Carmen, not chaotic revolution. That is our strength and her weakness.
He took another slow sip of his scotch.
The board, the investors, they crave predictability. They desire control. And Genevieve, in her ascendance, is relinquishing both.
Carmen's fingers worked across her tablet, accessing market data, investor sentiment reports, and board member profiles.
Thornton and DuPont are key, Alpha. Risk-averse, deeply concerned about market volatility. We can leverage their anxieties, paint a clear contrast between your pragmatic leadership and Genevieve's increasingly esoteric pronouncements.
Subtlety, Carmen.
Alpha emphasized, his voice dropping to a near whisper.
This must be a shadow war, played in boardrooms and back channels, not open confrontation. Not yet.
He paused, his gaze drifting back to the city lights, a predatory gleam entering his eyes.
And then there is Liora Atwood.
Carmen's perfectly sculpted eyebrows rose slightly, a flicker of curiosity in her eyes.
Dr. Atwood, her rapid integration is indeed remarkable. Genevieve's protégé, seemingly.
Remarkable and strategically convenient.
Alpha observed, his tone laced with suspicion.
Her reviver connections, her brother's history of descent. It is a variable we must understand, Carmen. Is she a genuine convert, or a Trojan horse?
Carmen considered for a moment, her mind dissecting the available data.
Her performance has been exemplary. Her research contributions are significant, and Genevieve has placed considerable faith in her, granting her virtually unlimited access.
Faith or manipulation?
Alpha countered, the word tinged with skepticism.
Genevieve's faith is a currency, Carmen, rarely spent without a calculated return. Asset or liability? Is Atwood for Genevieve or for us?
Potentially both, Alpha.
Carmen replied, her voice measured.
Her skill set is valuable. Her reviver connection is a vulnerability, but also potentially exploitable. Information, Alpha, and leverage. We need to understand her motivations, her true allegiance.
Surveillance,
Alpha stated, the word lingering like a command.
Intensify surveillance on Genevieve and her inner circle. Fei Lin, Julian Renard, and now Liora Atwood. Every communication, every movement, every deviation from established protocols. I want to know everything.
Carmen nodded, her expression resolute.
Silas is already briefed, Alpha. Discreet and comprehensive, as always.
Discretion is paramount.
Alpha reiterated, his gaze hardening.
We are not at war yet. But information, Carmen, is the currency of power. And in this game, control is the ultimate prize.
He raised his glass of scotch in a silent toast, the amber liquid swirling like a captured galaxy.
To shadows, Carmen, and the power they conceal.
Hours later, Alpha found himself in the starkly utilitarian environment of the Institute's surveillance hub. The opulent warmth of his office was replaced by the sterile hum of advanced technology, the soft glow of mahogany by the cold luminescence of holographic displays. The air was thin, filtered, a world removed from the rich aroma of aged scotch and leather. Silas Draven, the Institute's head of security, stood ramrod straight amidst the banks of monitors, his posture unwavering, his loyalty absolute. He was a creation of Alpha's own rigorous training, a man forged in the crucible of military discipline, his efficiency and unwavering obedience making him an invaluable instrument.
Director Magnus.
Silas greeted, his voice devoid of inflection, his gaze fixed straight ahead, even as Alpha approached.
Silas.
Alpha acknowledged, his presence commanded even in this functional space.
Surveillance priorities require adjustment.
Director's directives anticipated.
Silas replied, his movements precise as he gestured to a central console, a swirling vortex of data streams displayed on a holographic screen.
Full spectrum monitoring protocols are active, per standing orders.
Alpha moved to the console, his gaze scanning the real-time feeds, a dizzying array of information cascading across the displays. Corridors, labs, offices, even private residences. The Institute's pervasive surveillance network captured every nuance, every flicker of movement within its domain.
Dr. Boucher.
Alpha began, his voice cutting through the sterile hum of the hub.
Her activity stream requires Level 1 priority, real-time, comprehensive, and unfiltered.
Dr. Boucher's surveillance designation elevated to Priority 1.
Silas confirmed, his fingers flying across the console, reallocating resources, intensifying monitoring protocols with seamless efficiency.
Real-time data stream established, archived, cross-referenced. Predictive algorithms engaged in anomaly detection. Every communication, every movement, Every biosignatory fluctuation will be recorded.
Extend that to her inner circle.
Alpha continued, his gaze unwavering.
Fei Lin, Julian Renard, anyone in her immediate research team. I want granular details. Their interactions, their communications, any deviations from established protocols.
Inner circle surveillance protocols engaged.
Silas confirmed, his efficiency almost unnerving.
Personnel files cross-referenced. Communication logs decrypted. Movement patterns analyzed. Anomaly triggers are set for deviations exceeding established parameters. The system will flag any unusual activity and immediately report it.
Alpha paused, his gaze narrowing as he focused on a specific feed, a live view of Lab 7. Maya Lee's containment pod still faintly shimmering with residual energy, a ghostly reminder of Genevieve's increasingly unpredictable methods.
And Dr. Liora Atwood,
he added, his voice deliberate, emphasizing her name.
Her integration. Too rapid, too convenient. Her reviver affiliation remains a significant variable. Prioritize her monitoring, Silas. I want to understand her motivations, her loyalties. Is she playing a role, or is she simply naive?
Silas's gaze flickered momentarily to Alpha, a subtle acknowledgement of the shift in priorities.
Dr. Atwood. Noted. Additional resources allocated to her surveillance. Discreet and comprehensive, as always, Director. Reviver affiliation flagged and prioritized for deeper analysis. We will assess her psychological profile, cross-reference it with Reviver network data, engage behavioral pattern analysis, and deploy linguistic algorithms for communication decryption. Real-time risk assessment protocols activated.
Alpha nodded. A grim satisfaction settled within him.
Discretion, Silas.
He reiterated, echoing his earlier conversation with Carmen.
We are not at war yet, but information, Silas, is power. And in the shadows, power is absolute control.
Later, Alpha reviewed reports on the Reviver movement. Carmen's office, a temporary command center amidst the escalating internal power struggle. Holographic displays shimmered with data streams, defection rates, dwindling membership numbers, fractured communication logs, a movement visibly crumbling under the weight of betrayal and disillusion.
The revivers are in disarray, Carmen,
Alpha observed, a predatory gleam in his eyes as he surveyed the data.
May's defection, Leora's perceived betrayal, their ranks are thinning, their morale is fractured. Genevieve dismisses them as a minor annoyance. I see opportunity.
Carmen, ever pragmatic, raised a perfectly sculpted eyebrow.
Opportunity? To what end, Alpha?
Alpha leaned back in his chair, a slow smile spreading across his face.
To further destabilize Genevieve's position, Carmen. Public unrest, even on a small scale, reinforces the perception of chaos, of instability under her leadership. We can subtly amplify their desperation, perhaps even guide their actions to serve our agenda.
Carmen's expression tightened, a flicker of concern in her eyes.
Manipulating the revivers? A dangerous game, Alpha.
Alpha chuckled softly, a low, confident sound.
All power plays are dangerous, Carmen, but controlled chaos can be a valuable tool. Let Genevieve dismiss them as insignificant. We will use them to our advantage. Their planned demonstration, it's perfectly timed.
You intend to use the revivers' protest to your advantage?
Carmen pressed, her voice carefully measured.
How specifically?
Alpha leaned forward, his gaze intense, strategic.
Restrained security response, Carmen. Appear defensive, not aggressive. Let the public see Genevieve's institute as under siege, her control slipping. It reinforces the narrative of instability, of the need for steady leadership. My leadership.
He paused, a predatory glint in his eyes.
Let Genevieve chase her stars, Carmen. We will secure the earth beneath our feet.
Alpha Magnus stood once more at the panoramic window of his office, the city lights now a familiar landscape of his dominion. The scotch in his hand was almost empty. His gambit was set. The pieces were in play. The board was ready. The boardroom showdown loomed, a stage for his carefully orchestrated power play. He felt a surge of confidence, a sense of inevitability. Genevieve, in her pursuit of godhood, had become blind to the earthly currents of power, deaf to the whispers of dissent. And Alpha Magnus, ever pragmatic, ever calculating, was poised to seize the moment, to reclaim control, to ensure that the Infinity Institute and its revolutionary technology remained firmly in his hands. The price of hope, he knew, was often betrayal, and Alpha Magnus was ready to pay any price to win. What Alpha had never understood was that he did not have any secrets from Genevieve. She had installed surveillance that was generations more advanced than he could even begin to understand. And as far as being able to have surveillance on her or anyone else, Genevieve could block the surveillance, and they would never even know it was blocked, managed by her AI, generating images, messages, and conversations she wanted them to have. Alpha was going to seize control of the Institute. Genevieve didn't really care. She and her chosen were leaving soon. But no one as unworthy as Alpha should have control of the beautiful technology she had developed. So, she wrote code to prevent that happening. She was deep in the middle of writing the code that would protect the future when she received a mental message from Marcus telling her that he was happy and missing her. He told her that he understood if she was too busy to come to see him, but it was important for her to know he always looked forward to her coming to see him. Genevieve was never one to leave a task uncompleted, but she had other priorities now. Marcus was happy and missing her. She would go to him. She wanted to share in his happiness, and she was missing him too. These feelings were so strong, it would always thrill her when Marcus told her he missed her. He was her top priority now. Chapter 34. Marcus chooses Genevieve. The soft luminescence of the holographic displays cast an ethereal glow across Marcus's face, highlighting the newfound vitality that pulsed within him. He was sitting upright in the advanced medical bed, a posture of strength and ease that had been unimaginable just weeks ago. His eyes, once clouded with illness, now sparkled with an almost childlike joy, reflecting the dancing patterns of light on the screen before him. He was no longer the frail shadow of his former self. The Institute's treatments, Genevieve's treatments, had sculpted him anew, both body and, he was beginning to realize, mind as well.
She understands me. Really understands me.
The thought resonated within Marcus, a warm current of affection and something deeper, something akin to reverence. Genevieve. Her name was a whisper of wonder in his mind, a melody that played constantly beneath the surface of his every thought. She was more than just his doctor, more than just the brilliant scientist who had orchestrated his recovery. She was his everything. A mental thread, delicate yet strong, stretched between them. A silent conversation only they could hear. Genevieve? He projected the thought. A question, a yearning, a silent call across the sterile space of the medical wing. Almost instantly, a response, warm and clear, echoed in his mind.
Marcus, I was hoping to hear from you.
It was her voice, not spoken but felt, a presence that enveloped him, a connection that transcended mere words.
Are you well? Are you comfortable?
More than well.
He mentally replied, a surge of happiness bubbling up within him.
More than comfortable. I'm happy, Genevieve. Truly happy.
He let the unspoken words linger and warm her inside from the feelings between them, the confession of a feeling he had never dared to dream of before. A pause, then a wave of warmth washed over him, an emotion that felt like a caress, a silent affirmation of his unspoken feelings.
And I, Marcus, I find myself delighted by your happiness.
Then, a hint of something more, a subtle invitation woven into the mental thread.
Perhaps I could join you, share in this happiness?
Marcus's heart, newly strong and vibrant, leaped in his chest.
Please.
He projected back, the thought imbued with all the longing, all the new love that bloomed within him.
Please come.
Marcus shifted in the bed. His anticipation made his heart beat rapidly in his chest, a nervous energy he hadn't ever felt before. He adjusted the soft blanket, smoothed his hand over his newly toned arm, a silent, almost vain, acknowledgement of his physical transformation. He wanted to look his best for her, for Genevieve. The door to his room hissed open, and she was there, a vision of beauty in pristine white, the soft glow of light radiating an almost ethereal luminescence around her. Genevieve moved with that fluid grace that always captivated him, her crystal blue eyes, impossibly bright, fixed on him, holding him captive in their gaze.
Marcus,
she said, her voice soft, melodic, yet carrying an undercurrent of something deeper, something intimate, something that made his breath catch. He pushed himself up further, a surge of strength flowing through his limbs, a testament to her treatments, her science, her very being. He swung his legs over the side of the bed, his feet touching the cool floor, a simple action that felt like a triumph, a liberation.
Genevieve.
He breathed, his voice filled with a joy he couldn't contain, a love that overflowed. He stood, taller than he had ever been, stronger than he had ever imagined, and took a step towards her, his heart pulling him forward, drawn to her. She closed the distance between them, her movements mirroring his, a silent act of anticipation and desire. And then she was in his arms, her touch warm and electrifying to Marcus, her presence a force that both thrilled and humbled him. He held her close, breathing in her scent, a fragrance that was, to him, the most intoxicating perfume in the world. Just the smell of her, not hidden under the smell of flowers or spices, just her.
I missed you.
He whispered against her dark, perfect hair, the words inadequate, clumsy, yet filled with the entirety of his burgeoning heart. Genevieve tilted her head back, breaking the embrace just enough to look at him, her eyes searching his, probing the depths of his soul.
And I, Marcus,
she whispered, her voice husky, a tremor of something almost vulnerable in its tone.
I find that I missed you as well.
And then she kissed him. It wasn't a tentative, hesitant kiss, but a kiss of breathtaking intensity. A joining of souls, a merging of destinies. Her lips were wet and warm, yet yielding, her touch both gentle and demanding, a paradox that mirrored the complex woman she was. He responded instinctively, his arms tightening around her, his body pressing against hers, every nerve ending alight, every sense heightened. The sterile air of the medical wing seemed to fade away, replaced by the intoxicating scent of her, the electric touch of her skin, the overwhelming rush of emotion that flooded through him. They were still locked in their embrace when the door to Marcus's room hissed open again, the intrusion shattering the fragile intimacy of the moment. Liora stood frozen in the doorway, her hand hovering on the access panel, her eyes wide, disbelieving, fixed on the scene before her. The carefully constructed composure she had worn for weeks, the brittle mask of professional detachment, shattered into a million pieces, leaving her face raw, exposed, utterly vulnerable. For a heartbeat, time seemed to stop. The hum of the Institute faded, the sterile air grew thick and suffocating, and the only sound was the frantic pounding of Liora's own heart, a drumbeat of disbelief, betrayal, and pain. She had come to convince Marcus, to reason with him, to take him home. She had come armed with arguments, with pleas, with the desperate hope of rescuing him from the Institute's grasp, from Genevieve's influence. She had come to tell him it was time to leave, that he was well enough, that they could rebuild their lives together outside these sterile walls, away from the encroaching shadow of the Infinity Institute. But the scene before her, the intimate embrace, the undeniable passion, the sheer romance of it, obliterated all her carefully prepared words, all her fragile hopes, all her desperate plans. It wasn't just the Institute she was fighting. It wasn't just Genevieve's influence. There was something far more profound, far more personal, far more devastating.
What?
Liora's voice was barely a whisper, a strangled sound torn from her constricted throat.
What's going on here?
The question lingered, fragile, broken, a desperate plea for an explanation that her heart already knew would never come. Marcus, startled, broke the kiss, pulling back from Genevieve, his face flushed, his eyes wide, a mixture of surprise and a dawning awareness of the scene's potentially devastating impact on his sister. Genevieve, ever composed, remained unfazed, her expression shifting from lover's warmth to clinical detachment in a breath, her gaze now fixed on Liora, assessing, calculating, almost pitying.
Lee.
Marcus began, his voice hesitant, uncertain, reaching out a hand towards her, a gesture of appeasement, of apology, of something he couldn't quite articulate. But Liora recoiled, her body instinctively shrinking back, away from him, away from Genevieve, away from the intimacy of the room that had suddenly become a stage for her own personal tragedy. She felt a physical pain, a sharp, agonizing twist in her chest, as if her heart itself was being ripped in two.
Marcus?
She repeated, her voice rising now, laced with a raw, desperate plea for understanding.
What is this? What are you doing?
Her gaze flickered between him and Genevieve, her mind struggling to process the impossible reality before her. Her brother, healed, vibrant, alive, embracing the woman she had come to see as a monster, a manipulator, a threat to everything she held dear. Marcus stepped fully away from Genevieve, his expression shifting from joy to painful confusion. A desperate yearning for Liora to understand, to accept, to share in his newfound happiness.
Lee, it's not what you think.
He stammered, the words clumsy, inadequate, failing to capture the depth of his emotions, the profound shift in his allegiances.
Not what I think?
Leora's laugh was sharp, brittle, edged with hysteria.
Marcus, I see you, kissing her, embracing her, in the privacy of your room. What am I supposed to think?
Her voice cracked, tears welling in her eyes, blurring her vision, making the room swim around her, a dizzying vortex of betrayal and despair. Genevieve stepped forward, her movements controlled, her presence radiating an aura of calm authority that only amplified Leora's sense of chaos, of unraveling.
Liora.
Genevieve began, her voice smooth, reasonable, infuriatingly calm.
Perhaps you misunderstand. Marcus and I were merely...
She paused, searching for the right words, settling on a phrase that was both clinically detached and subtly possessive.
acknowledging our connection.
Connection?
Liora spat the word, her voice dripping with scorn.
Is that what you call it? Manipulating my brother? Seduced by your promises? Is that your connection, Genevieve?
Her gaze burned into Genevieve, accusing, challenging, desperate for a denial, for any flicker of humanity beneath the cold, sculpted facade. But Genevieve remained unmoved, her expression serene, almost pitying.
Liora, your emotional response is understandable given the circumstances, but perhaps you are projecting your own prejudices onto a situation you do not fully comprehend.
Prejudices?
Leora's voice rose another notch, her control fraying, anger now warring with despair.
This isn't about prejudices, Genevieve. This is about my brother, about you manipulating him, changing him, turning him into one of your enhanced puppets.
Marcus stepped forward again, his expression pained as he pleaded.
Lee, please, you don't understand.
He begged, his voice laced with desperate sincerity.
It's not like that. Genevieve isn't manipulating me. I chose this. I chose her.
The confession, stark, undeniable, a brutal declaration of his allegiance, his betrayal, his devastating choice. Liora stared at him, her tears flowing freely now, unchecked, unbidden, blurring his face, distorting his features, making him seem like a stranger, someone she no longer recognized, someone who had been stolen from her, replaced by an institute puppet, an enhanced echo of her brother.
You chose her?
Liora repeated, her voice barely a whisper, laced with a disbelief so profound, it bordered on utter despair.
You chose her over me? Over us? Over everything we've been through? Everything we've fought for?
Marcus's face crumpled, his newfound strength faltering, his joy fading, replaced by a raw, aching pain.
No, Lee, that's not what I meant.
He stammered, his voice thick with emotion, reaching for her again, his hand outstretched, pleaded.
I didn't choose her over you. I just chose happiness, Lee. For once, I chose to be happy.
Happiness?
Leora's laugh was a sob, a sound of utter devastation.
You call this happiness, Marcus? Trapped in this sterile cage, manipulated by her, changed into something not human anymore? Is that your idea of happiness?
Different is better than dead, Lee.
Marcus whispered, echoing their old mantra, a desperate attempt to bridge the chasm that had opened between them. He reminded her of the desperate hope that had brought them to this place, to this agonizing crossroads. But the words, once a beacon of hope, now sounded hollow, meaningless, a cruel mockery of their shared past, their shared dreams. Different wasn't better. different, was lost. It was a betrayal. Different was Marcus, slipping away from her, becoming someone, something she no longer knew.
Don't say that.
Liora choked out, her voice breaking, unable to bear the weight of his words, the finality of his choice.
Don't you dare say that to me, Marcus, not anymore.
She backed away, stumbling, her gaze fixed on him, memorizing his face, imprinting every detail onto her breaking heart, knowing, with a chilling certainty, that this was the last time she would ever truly see him, the last time she would ever truly know him.
I have to go,
she whispered, the words a release, an escape, a surrender. She turned blindly, stumbling towards the door, not waiting for a response, not daring to look back, fleeing the sterile intimacy of the room, fleeing the impossible reality of Marcus's choice, fleeing the crushing weight of her own devastating loss. Liora fled the Infinity Institute, the gleaming towers receding behind her, the sterile air replaced by the gritty reality of the city's streets, the hum of technology fitting into the cacophony of human life. But the noise, the crowds, the chaotic energy of the city offered no solace, no distraction from the storm raging within her. She hailed a cab, collapsing into the back seat, the rhythmic wipers a hypnotic counterpoint to the turmoil in her thoughts, the rain mirroring the tears streaming down her face. St. Mary's rose before her, a starkly different kind of sanctuary than the Institute, one of worn linoleum and the faint scent of antiseptic, yet somehow more human. She didn't stop. Not St. Mary's. Not home. She directed the driver to the Reviver's sanctuary, a desperate, instinctive flight towards the only place that had ever felt like home, the only people who had ever felt like family. The underground sanctuary was dim, somber, depleted, the air filled with a silence that was more oppressive than any noise. Empty chairs stood scattered around the makeshift tables, remnants of a fractured community, ghosts of a failing movement. The sanctuary, once a haven of resistance, now felt like a tomb, cold, unwelcoming, mirroring the icy desolation in Leora's heart. Kael was there, pacing restlessly in the dim light, his figure a taut silhouette against the concrete walls, his face etched with a weariness that went beyond mere physical exhaustion. He looked up as Liora stumbled down the steps, his expression hardening as he saw her. Her tear-streaked face, her disheveled appearance, the raw, naked pain radiating from her.
Liora,
he said, his voice flat, devoid of any warmth, any brotherly concern.
What happened?
She couldn't speak, couldn't articulate the devastation that had ripped through her, the betrayal that had shattered her world. She just shook her head, tears streaming down her face, her body trembling uncontrollably.
It's Marcus,
she finally choked out, the words fragmented, barely audible above her sobs.
He chose her, Kael. He chose Genevieve. He's gone.
Kael's jaw tightened, his expression hardening further, his eyes reflecting a cold, unyielding anger.
Gone?
He repeated, his voice harsh, accusatory.
What do you mean gone? Did they enhance him? Did they turn him into one of them?
Liora shook her head again, unable to speak, unable to explain the complexity of Marcus's choice, the agonizing depth of her loss. She just sobbed, her body racked with grief, seeking solace, seeking understanding, seeking comfort in the only other place she had ever known it, in the arms of her other brother, her family, her leader, Kael. She reached for him, her hands outstretched, pleading, desperate for a brother's embrace, a brother's comfort, a brother's understanding. But Kael remained rigid and unyielding, his arms crossed, his body unmoving, a stone wall against her desperate plea.
Don't,
Kael snapped, his voice cold, dismissive, cutting through her sobs.
Don't come to me with this, Liora. Not now, not after everything.
Liora recoiled, her outstretched hands falling limply to her sides, her heart twisting with a fresh wave of pain, a deeper, more profound betrayal. She stared at Kael, her brother, her leader, the man who had always been her rock, her anchor, and saw only anger, only judgment, only a cold, unyielding rejection.
Kael, please,
she whispered, her voice breaking, tears choking her words.
I need you. I need you to understand.
Understand?
Kael's laugh was bitter, humorless, laced with a raw, aching anger.
Understand what, Liora? That you took him there, that you led him into their arms, and that you gave him to them, knowing what they are, knowing what they do?
No!
Liora pleaded, her voice desperate, tears streaming down her face.
You don't understand. I tried to save him. I thought it was the only way.
Save him?
Kael spat the words, his eyes burning with a cold, furious intensity.
You think you saved him, Liora? Look at yourself. Look at what you've done. You betrayed us all. You betrayed everything we stand for, and now you come to me, expecting comfort, expecting sympathy, after you handed your own brother over to the enemy?
No!
Liora sobbed again, her body shaking uncontrollably.
It's not like that. I didn't betray you, and I didn't betray us. I just love him, Kael. I just wanted to save him.
Love?
Kael's laugh was harsh, dismissive.
Love is weakness, Liora. Sentimentality is a luxury we can no longer afford. Not now, not when everything is falling apart.
He gestured around the depleted sanctuary, the empty chairs, the ghosts of their failing movement.
Look around you, Liora. This is what your love has cost us. This is what your weakness has done.
Weakness?
Liora whispered, her voice barely audible, her heart shattering into a million pieces.
Is that what you think of me, Kael? Weak?
Kael turned away from her, his gaze fixed on the dim, flickering lights of the sanctuary, his posture rigid and unyielding, his silence a brutal condemnation.
I don't know what to think of you anymore, Liora,
he said finally, his voice cold and distant, utterly devoid of brotherly warmth.
I just know you're on your own now.
Liora stood alone in the somber sanctuary, the silence closing in around her, heavy, oppressive, and suffocating. Kael turned his back to her, his anger a solid wall between them, offering no comfort, no solace, no understanding, only a cold, brutal rejection. She was alone, utterly alone, betrayed by her brother, rejected by her other brother, adrift in a world that had become a labyrinth of impossible choices, devastating losses, and the chilling, inescapable price of hope. And as the rain lashed against the grimy windows of the sanctuary, mirroring the storm raging within her soul, Liora Atwood knew, with a heart-wrenching certainty, that she had paid that price in full and lost everything in the process. Marcus was in tears. His heart was breaking. His sister, who for many years had been his only friend, his only contact with the world, had now abandoned him and refused to share his joy. Genevieve stood looking at Marcus, and in that moment, she knew he was even more special than she had realized. He did not relent about his love for her, despite his sister's pleas and even her recriminations. He had still chosen her. She was having feelings she had not felt since the untimely death of her mother. She went to Marcus, took him in her arms, and asked what she could do to comfort him. As he sobbed into her hair, he said, "Keep loving me. And can we show my sister that we love and care about her?" At his request, Genevieve formulated a plan in her mind, as she said to Marcus,
"Yes, my love, we will do something very special for our sister."
Marcus pulled her tight and kissed her with all the passion he possessed.
Professional audiobooks in a click.
Spoken.